Wonderful. Well, good morning, everybody. What a beautiful morning it is. Great to have everybody here and join, and just the whirlwind of life here at the church, getting all the furniture back together so everyone can have a place to sit. Just want to welcome you into this space this morning. So, got a few songs to sing. Some of them will know, some of them might be a bit new, but hopefully it will help us enter into the morning time together. So. Let's just take a minute together. Just share the silence together. We're here in this place. Fresh morning. Just had a nice rainfall. The garden's growing. And we're here together. Creator, we just thank you for this time and space to be able to meet and be with each other, be free, have a hot cup of coffee, sit on a couch, share a laugh, share some sadness, enjoy this life together. Absolutely. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where his feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, eating softly. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of a new day. Has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. I didn't realize that wasn't originally written by Cat Stevens, so it's an old hymn, which is wonderful. just Cat Stevens puts all those crazy chord changes in there.
That's great.
We wanna be where you are. We wanna feel your beating heart. And where you go, we will go too. We wanna be with you. We wanna be where you are. We wanna feel your beating heart. And where you go, we will go too. We wanna be with you. There is no fear in your love. There is no shame in your light. Only the laughter of God, shaking the dead back to life. There is no fear in your love. There is no shame in your light. Only the mercy of God. Only impossible life. We wanna love just like you. We wanna break for the broken too. Lay down our lives for our friends. We wanna be like you. There is no fear in your love. There is no shame in your light. Only the laughter of God, shaking the dead back to life. There is no fear in your love. There is no shame in your light. Only the mercy of God. Only impossible life. Love, you lifted me. Love, it lifted me up when nothing, no one else could help. Love, it lifted me. Love, it lifted me. Love, it lifted me up when nothing, no one Once in a while, I think we just need that reminder of what kind of love we have available here. The kind that just allows us to shed the shame, whatever we're carrying with us during our week. Let go of the fears that we're feeling in our relationships or in our circumstances. Just remember that there's a joy in the life, the love that's surrounding us, that's trying to get into our hearts, and it's the kind that gives us hope in the midst of darkness. That isn't afraid of laughing in the midst of all of that. And that can bring life from the dead. So. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like a motherless child. That too, sometimes, for sure. Thanks, Peter. Yeah.
Just couldn't help it.
That's okay. This next song may find a leg and play it here a lot, but often I feel like, oh yeah, this is a great song for anybody who's a guest in the church. But some days you just feel like the lost and weary traveler. I know I do. And so it's for all of us. Lost and weary traveler, searching for the way to go. Stranger, heavy-hearted, longing for someone you know. May you find light. May you find delight. May you find the light to guide you on. searching everywhere you go. Strangers who are searching, longing deeply to be known. May you find the light. May you find the light. May you find the light to guide you home. May you find the light. May you find the light. May you find the light to guide you home. May you find the light. May you find the light. May you find the light to guide you home. For the beauty of the earth, for the beauty of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies. Lord of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the beauty of each hour, of the day and of the night, of vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light. Lord of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human love, brother, sister, parent, child, friends on earth and friends above, for all gentle thoughts and mild, Lord of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For each perfect gift of thine, to all people freely given, graces human and divine, flowers of earth and buds of heaven, Lord of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. Lord of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. I'll turn it over to whoever is up next.
Yeah. I don't. Hi everybody. Hi everybody. I don't know if you have the same feelings that I do, but just song after song, what I was doing, I just didn't want him to end it. You know, morning has broken. It was so beautiful to be there. And when you started the chords for the next song, it sounded like another Cat Stevens song. And I was just, you know, I can't remember which one now, but I had Tea for the Tillerman, that album. Everybody I knew had that album. And then, yeah, thanks. Just resting in those songs. So this was a very big week for Marielle and me because our friend passed away and we were involved with the family. And on Friday afternoon we had visitation here, and this place was just a swirl. It was packed with people and the family, and everybody soft because of losing this dear lady, Joan Carmont, from our church. But everybody soft, but then the laughter. The laughter was just, you know, people kept saying, these are people I haven't seen in 20 years. You know, so many people made that comment. So that was just rich. And then yesterday was the funeral, and once again it was, you know, the family members just spoke out of their heart about their mom, or Bill gave the eulogy and spoke about his wife of 59 years. And yeah. And you know, there's so many stories, like that, some inspiring, some amazing. But actually on the very morning that she died, I took my guitar over to sing a song to her, and we could hear laughter coming out of her window, her bedroom window, as we got close to the house. And what had happened is that when the guys saw me and Marielle driving down the long driveway to their place, somebody said, "Oh, Peter's bringing his guitar today," and the son-in-law Andre said, "Oh, would you like me to sing till he gets here?" And Joan said, "I know I'm dying, but don't hasten it along." There are just so many moments like that. There's such a courageous, incredible person who was just full of life and full of faith. And the whole service is on our Facebook page, and if you want to, you can see it. And it's such just tribute after tribute after tribute to this incredible person. And honestly, I don't know that I've ever seen anyone in my life better prepared for death. And yeah. So anyway, then also I see that we have travelers, weary travelers. You guys have been home for 3 days now. So 3 days from Brazil. And was it a good trip?
Yeah.
No, I guess it was amazing. That's great. It was your honeymoon. Yeah. Congratulations.
We had to wait 10 years for our...
We had to wait 10 years for our honeymoon. Yeah, and then we went to a ski resort in the summer because it was cheaper. But we had a great time. Yeah, we had a great time. Yeah, 3 days. It's true. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did kind of make up for it. In the early days of the church, we just didn't feel that we could leave very easily, and also those were the early days of our children. And we tended to be here most of the time. And because the university started to develop travel programs, people were going this way and that, and we were just going, oh. And then finally it became natural for us to take part in them too. Jeff, you're just back from Africa? Yeah. It was 5 weeks?
No, just
3.5. 3.5 weeks. And what were you doing most of the time?
a lot of talking with people, a lot of connecting with people I knew previously, and then new staff, new people there. Chainsaw instruction. Yeah.
You mean you were able to teach people things about chainsaws? Yeah.
Yeah. Getting into our container, getting medical supplies out to the clinic and tools and stuff out to people that we sent them for. Yeah, going out on medical outreach
Wonderful.
that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was just really full.
Yeah. Well, it's wonderful that every time you get a chance to do that, it's a connecting with this long-standing dream that's part of the core of your being. And so good to have you back. And then, Jason, I think you sold your house in Ontario?
I did.
Congratulations. And so, this means a complete and full welcome to the citizenship of St. Stephen. Pray that you be with Walt as he speaks today. Amen.
Got a little buzzing up here, Bill. Any chance of?
No, we had it earlier too, so.
That's okay. I mean, I can live with it. It's no problem. I just wondered if you knew.
We spent a lot of time putting that lovely board up there.
Oh, you did. This place is just coming together. I mean, even during the morning, the room was transformed. It was full of chairs in the old row.
Theaters.
Yeah, and I guess we weren't wanting to go back
No.
to that now. But then the baffle's getting covered. It looks very nice. The plants in the windows, are those going to stay, or is that just, yeah, beautiful. And there's going to be art coming on the walls soon. I mean, more art than just the Ukraine flag, which is nice. But and do we have to give more money for that to happen, or is it just time waiting? More money. Okay, so if you want to see some great art on the wall, send some donations.
In fact, it might be worth. I've never actually made them. Can I make a quick announcement?
Yes.
Forgive me for this quick announcement. We need money. We have not sort of come back to full force, and through COVID, the church numbers gradually quieted down, and the government kept us going with nonprofit stipends for salaries and things like that. So we really did extremely well last year, but this year we've learned that we're behind. So we'd love if people can just grow in the focus on generosity for the church. Thanks.
And we'll hold the bare walls hostage. I have to start with a confession. Oh, this is still a little low, right?
I don't think so.
No? I have to start with a bit of a confession. I realized this morning that clearly I was a little out of sync with the Spirit. So here's the quick story before the story today, which is somewhere around the time of our graduation at SSU. Shauna Lucas did a presentation there, and she talked a little bit about Babel, and then over the weeks after that, it was just running into the story of Babel over and over and over again, here, there, and everywhere. So I felt this has really got to get my attention. I started to get a few thoughts together. I wanted to give a message related to that story, which is a fascinating story. And then I thought, I'm not ready yet. I'm going to do something else. And then the lectionary reading was the Tower of Babel this morning. So clearly I missed it. I'm so sorry. But
So should we leave now?
yeah, go somewhere where you can get someone lined up with the Spirit. Truth-telling, hospitality, and joy. I think there might be some value in this too. So
Some of you might pick up in the title of this message. One of the main things I've been working on the last half year is at SSU we're launching a new program for the fall, which is called Truth-Telling and Reconciling with Indigenous Peoples. So it's a graduate certificate program in helping to prepare. Very often you'll hear people say, well, if you want to aim toward reconciliation, like you got to do the work first. Like, don't expect others to do it for you. Don't expect to do that in the middle of a relationship, but do some of this preparation work in advance. And so this is a certificate program that's designed to help people to do that, to prepare them for careers where they may need to engage with Indigenous communities well, with integrity in the midst of some type of career. Anyway, I'm not selling it to you, but I'm just saying this is where my heart's been for the last while. And so this idea of truth-telling, we centered it in the title of the program because as I was doing the consultations, before we even started putting a framework together, we had 2-3 months of talking and dialoguing with Indigenous friends and colleagues saying, if we're going to do a program like this, what type of preparation do people need? What should this look like? And by far the thing that was named over and over and over again was it has to be about truth-telling. And some of you might have heard of the saying, we've had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in Canada. Was quite a big process, ended about 5-6 years ago. And one of the sayings that's been common after that is truth before reconciling. So there's a reason that the truth word comes first, and that there has to be an honest accounting of truth before the reconciling can take place. So that's been a lot on my mind, and I was thinking about that as I was driving down because I don't know, this also was not a good idea to sign up to give a sermon when you're going to be away for 3 days till really late the night before. So I was just at this. Is this going to work? It is on. Yes.
There we go. That was me.
Oh, okay. So I've just been at a NAITS symposium in Nova Scotia. NAITS is the North American Institute for Indigenous Theological Studies. So some of you may have met Terry LeBlanc before. He's a good friend of ours. He's spoken at the church quite a long time ago. Spoken at university several times since then. And
Yikes.
am I still good? Do we have
We don't have
sound?
sound.
Should I use my outdoor voice?
I was trying to help you be able to do that, and then this happened, so, I see it, I see the problem.
Well, seeing the problem is the beginning of the battle.
Truth before
I see the problem.
seeing the proof first.
That's a little, well, let's try that.
Hello.
How about that?
Now, yeah,
Yes.
that sounds better.
Yep.
Let's try that again.
So yeah, I just got back late last night, and actually later last night than I'd hoped, because I found this thing out about, here's another confession, I found this thing out about Google Maps. I've never been to Wolfville before, actually. This is my first time going to Wolfville, and I haven't even been anywhere in the Annapolis Valley for ages and ages. And I got there by taking back roads because I had the time. And so when I was driving home, I was going on roads that I wasn't familiar with, wasn't paying attention to, partly because I had someone I was giving a lift home, and I got my phone connected to my screen of my car, and I punched in going home, which felt really nice, and saw that they wanted to send me home on the ferry. It's like, no, I'm not going to take the ferry, so I tap the other route, and it highlights the other route, and then I hit start, and I take off down the roads that they lead me on. But when I hit start, it sent me back to the ferry, and I didn't know that. So I was, 20, 30 minutes down the wrong, and it's like, I don't think this feels right. But I was gabbing away to this person beside me, not paying attention. It's like, oh, so an extra hour. And if you know my personality, I hate that. so bad to do the wrong thing and then have to double back and do it all over again. Oh my goodness, I hate that. And then almost made another mistake because the person I was driving, that's almost the second in my life. The person beside me, she said, "Can you give me a ride to Sackville?" I said, "Oh, sure. I'm going right through Sackville, no problem." And then as I'm driving away, she said, "You do know I meant Sackville, Nova Scotia, right?" No! We call that Lower Sackville when you're in New Brunswick. Anyway, we made it. It was all good. And I had great company. We wouldn't have had near the chance to talk if I'd done the right thing and just driven her there. So that was all good. Anyway, so I'm tired. It was late. It was the last 3 days. But on the road there, I was going to talk about truth-telling. And so I said to myself, okay, I'm going to talk about the truth will set you free. And because you've all heard the part about first it makes you miserable, right? But then it sets you free. And we know that there's a lot of truth to both sides of that. And I was going to talk about this concept. You've heard me do it before. I've snuck it into at least. Did that work, Chris? No, it didn't. Oh, come on. There we go. Debowin, it's an Anishinaabe word, and it means, it's a word for truth, but it is related to the sound of your beating heart. So it's a very embodied sense of truth. It's the truth that lives within your being. And there's also within the word the sense that it's only truth as far as we've known it. It's only truth as far as we've experienced it. There's no talking about truth in abstracts beyond what you know, beyond what you experience. So it's a beautiful word for truth. I think if we'd understood truth in this way all the way along, we would have avoided a lot of mess by silliness of talking about abstracts and absolute truths and things like that. But this verse is, you will know the truth and the truth will make you free. So I had this in my mind going to the symposium. This is where I'm going to talk about. And then I sit down and see this banner flying over the stage. Now, of course, you know Latin, right? Veritas nos liberat. I don't know Latin. Liberat, little something. Jason, you must know Latin. I can't quite read it. What is it?
Well, I can't make it out, but it sounds like the truth will set you free.
Liberabit, yeah, the truth will set you free. So there it is. Mm-hmm. So, you know, at least I caught one whiff of the Spirit, even if I didn't talk about the Tower of Babel.
I noticed you didn't put up the banner that had Tower of Babel.
But actually, I thought about it later, and the verse that I want to center on even more fully is this one. Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and honesty, or with actions and in truth. Because, again, like the word Debowin, if we had understood truth more in this way in a church context, we would have been way better off than if we'd understood truth as some kind of dogmatic confidence or some kind of controlling of facts to fit our stories. So this is what I think our deepest invitation is to. Let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and honesty. So the truth that's helpful is a truth that centers around the idea of honesty and integrity more than that of being factually or dogmatically correct. So I want to just talk about a few different ways in which this applies to the church. So I'll start by asking this question with, I think, some obvious answers. Does the church walk in honesty and integrity? And do we tell the truth in church? So the obvious answer is no. But sometimes, right? There's a lot of times where we don't do that. Now, we should just be honest about the fact that we know this about ourselves, and we have known this through thousands of years. This is why we do this practice called confession, which is realigning with the truth and naming where we've gone off the truth. This should have been our practice that was built in all the way along, where we say, oh, we messed up there, we didn't get it right, now we're realigning with truth. This is what confession means, is where we learn to speak the same voice that God is inviting us to. We learn to line ourselves up with what is honest and what has integrity. And I think, well, even this morning I was thinking during the early service, it's actually tricky to get ready for a talk and then go to the early service because you keep getting all these new ideas to change what you want to think as you're sitting there. And one of those ideas was being reminded of how the emphasis in some of the last few hundred years on inerrancy and infallibility have been one of the biggest enemies of truth in the church, because this idea that we had to defend the infallibility or the inerrancy of Scripture is what made us lie more than anything else. Like, it's so much dishonesty has come from that, trying to defend this understanding that was not our friend. And as a result of that, it's like, when you start off on the wrong track and then you keep digging yourself deeper to try to get out of it. That's, I think, what has happened with the church in regard to infallibility and inerrancy. But I don't want to talk about the church out there. I want to talk about the church closer to home too. So thinking about us, like, do we walk in truth? Do we walk honestly? Do we walk with integrity? And do we tell the truth in church? So, and again, I think the obvious answer is, sometimes, and sometimes not. And I love how Ray started the service this morning, because it reminded me of the fact that we have the courage to sing laments when we sing. We don't just sing the goodness and the light and the joy, but we also sing about remembering that we're sometimes more like lost and weary travelers, and that's a part of seeking an honest path together as a church. But I wanted to, do you notice I'm moving fast, and I didn't want to give you like a long period of time to say, like, how have we not been honest here as a church? You can stick a word in. Oh shoot, Peter, what are you going to say?
Well, remember that in the church about 2 hours ago, that I said that I did the things that I was too proud of in my life?
Sorry, what depends on your?
I used to say I did the things in my life that I'm not too proud of.
Oh yeah, you did things that you're not too proud of, and we all have. But I think one of the ways in which we've been dishonest is we've tried to oversimplify that into a before and after story. Where it's like the old us used to do those things, and now I don't. But I think the thing is, yesterday did some things that I wasn't proud of.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, and so I think we need to say that in an ongoing way. But thanks for reminding us of that.
Yeah.
So let's explore some ways together in terms of how we tell the truth. So I want to make this more invitational than confrontational, let's say, for this morning. So let's look at some ways in which we tell the truth. So one of the ways in which we tell the truth is we tell the truth when it's aligned with our actions. And again, this is what I hear in the preparations for the reconciliation studies. I keep hearing this over and over again. In fact, this Indigenous elder couple, a Willistic couple from Tubik, David and Imelda Purley, some of us have met them over the years at SSU. And one of the things they said is, you have to say over and over and over again, reconciliation is not a noun, it's a verb. It's an action verb. It's something that you do. In fact, you should always use the word reconciliation. And it's like, okay, they said you should use it as the title of your program. I went, well, okay. It's like, I hear you, but I'm just so scared that it sounds cheesy to say reconciliation. So I compromised. I used it in the name of my course, but I didn't use it in the name of the program itself, but I used reconciling to emphasize the action part of that. But the word reconciliation, and actually heard it a lot at the symposium too, it's trying to remind us over and over again, it's not about a state, it's not about our words, it's not about the ending document of the TRC, it's about an ongoing process that has to be lived out with actions that we're barely beginning, right? In fact, a lot of times you'll hear, depending on how, what's the word? Depending on whether the Indigenous activism is friendly or more militant, you'll hear that we can't even talk about reconciliation. We're not even ready for the beginning part of that. There are so many other things that have to come first before we even start. Pardon?
Who talks about it? You sound like it's like sides or something. It comes across like we.
No, well, I'm talking about like the different people that I've consulted with. Some of them love to talk about reconciling, and others say, "Oh, I just don't even like the word because we're not even ready to have that conversation yet, because there hasn't been enough truth telling." Is what some folks would say. So this is an active word. We don't want to bother with words that are not aligned with what we're actually doing. So when I think about us as a church, for example, I think, we were telling the truth when we welcomed newcomers, when we welcomed refugees, because there was a lot of action behind our words. We lived that out. I think we're telling the truth when we start a community garden, and we put lots of time and energy into creating that space and welcoming people from the community into the garden. One of the celebrations of this year is it's the first year that the community garden's been completely full. And we've given away all the beds before the start of the season. And I think at least half the folks are not connected to the church. So that's been another great place where our actions are speaking the truth. I think when Pete and Mary Ellen spent all the time and love with the Carmons over the last months, years, how long has it been, the journey with Joan?
Well, the last 2 years.
2 years, yeah. Like that kind of care over time through hard seasons, that's telling the truth of what we're doing. And so it's in our actions that we speak the truth. And it's not when words are more separated from that. Second thing is, we tell the truth when we're honest about our doubts. So how do we speak about doubts? How do we, sometimes we feel free to say the things we're doubting. Sometimes we're scared to say them out loud, because even being honest with ourselves about our own doubts is hard, and if we don't speak them, then they freak us out less than if we don't say them out loud. But I think one of the things that we can do for each other is be a place where we talk about our wrestling with doubts and work through that together. So I think we've done that very often, but I think sometimes we've done it late. I think we've sometimes not realized that we could invite people into saying deeper doubts than they knew. But we've probably had more atheists worship with us than most people have. So I think that's a good thing. I think it's felt safe for people to share all their doubts for the most part. But we have to be honest with ourselves about all our own doubts too, especially the ones that cause us fear, right? I think those are the hardest doubts for us to talk about, the ones that we're actually wrestling with in places that make us quite afraid. And so are we able to speak those out loud? Are we able to be honest about what we're saying there? We tell the truth when we course correct regularly. This is it's kind of related to what I said at the outset about the church. This is really hard with the screen behind me. Yeah, good. I just never quite trust I'm on the right screen. I think this is where the language of inerrancy and infallibility messed us up, because once we start saying we own the truth in a way that doesn't change, then that makes it very hard to do this course correcting. And actually an Indigenous man at the symposium was telling me the story about, I might not be saying it right, but he said if you set out with a ship from North America and you're half a degree off and you're aiming for, I don't know, Brazil, somewhere in South America, I said if you're half a degree off and you don't course correct, you'll miss all of South America. Like you won't even hit the continent, you'll be that far off. And this is the way in which we get ourselves into a pickle if we think we have to defend the way we've always done it instead of regularly doing course corrections along the way. So we have to critique ourselves. We have to always be looking at, how can we do this? How can we do this better? How can we name the mistakes that we're making? How can we see the harms that we've done and be honest about those harms? And here's where this is confession maybe number 3 for myself. One of the reasons that I'm doing the work at SSU that I'm doing now in building this program is because I feel like it's part of what we owe serving Indigenous people to do this. This isn't how I would really love to be doing my time this year at SSU. I'd rather do something I was more confident in, where I was going to receive less criticism from others, looking over my shoulder. There's a lot of things I would rather do than do this really challenging new program. But I feel like the idea started to come alive and then needed some work to back it up. And I just felt like leaving it die on the floor because there wasn't someone leading the charge just didn't feel right, didn't feel like it was making amends to the things that, to the harms that we've done in the past. And there's some specific ways that feel close to home with that. I don't know how many of you read the calls to action to the TRC that came out just after the process. And one of the things that really got my attention there was that the calls to action said the churches have to stop referring to Indigenous spirituality as something that is misleading and demonic. That's not word for word, but it's something along those lines. And that to do that is spiritual abuse. That you're participating in spiritual abuse. I was reminded of that again at this symposium. I had a young woman come up to me and we'd been in a talking circle together, and she'd heard that I was from St. Stephen. She said, "Oh, you know what?" So when I say young woman, probably in her 40s, by the way, because I'm old now, so that just keeps changing. So she said, "Oh yeah, just way back as a teenager, I visited this family in St. Stephen, and she said they lived in the country and they had some kids, and the oldest daughter was blind." And I went, "Oh, hey, that was us." So that was kind of fun, and so talking with her about things and remembering that visit from probably 30 years ago. Yeah, 29 years ago that was. It was 93. And her parents were into Neil Anderson. So I don't know how many of you remember Neil Anderson. I was a student of inner healing prayer, and Neil Anderson was one model of approaching these things. It's not one I particularly like, to be honest, but one of the things that I liked to do was go through all these ways to purify your life, because all of these things lead to the demonic, right? So it was like, get rid of this, get rid of that, get rid of this. And it's like, okay, I never liked it, but I didn't fight it anywhere near the way I should. Like I tolerated it. I had a copy of the book in my office, for Pete's sake. Shoot, sorry, I'm not allowed to use that. For goodness sake. I probably even let people read it. And I just think it's terrible, because it definitely named Indigenous spirituality as one of those things that could lead to your inviting in demonic control into your life, So when I read that in the calls to action to the TRC, I thought that just feels way too close to home. Like, I have to be a part of responding to this and saying really, really clearly, if we do anything like that, it's not just bad discernment, it's spiritual abuse. Like, it's naming people's traditions as if you have the right to label that as demonic, and it's not okay. So this is one of the reasons why I feel like amends need to be made, and so I feel like taking up this calling for at least this year is something that just needs to be done. Fourth, we have to speak honestly about our own experience. So, this is hard for some of us, and partly what I mean by being honest about our own experiences is being honest about the fact that we're not always doing well, being honest about the fact that we need help doing stuff. These are things that are personally hard for me to do because I'm a person who, when things get hard, I don't talk about how they're hard generally. I put my head down and plow, That's my own method most of the time. And so it's important to say, it's important for me to say, this has been a really hard year, for me in lots of different ways. It's been a really discouraging week, to be honest, that I've just had for a lot of different ways. I don't talk about that very honestly most of the time. But I think we need to do that more with each other because I think that's part of when I was putting this together, I thought, dang, this is one of the ways in which I'm not very honest in church. I think I tend to come across as if I have things together way more than I do. So I think it's important that we talk about all the ways in which, things might be going hard. I'm going to survive. I'm going to be okay. But in the middle of this, there are going to be some really hard days that we need to talk about. And we need to talk about it with each other. Or sometimes we give them the idea that we're meant to live up to some standard that doesn't exist, right? Of people who just sail along and aren't thrown by a lot of different things. So I think we need to be really honest about our experience in a lot of different ways. Can you tell I don't like talking about that? I don't. We tell the truth when we're hospitable to the truth of others. It's recognizing that we live in a community of people trying to tell the truth with each other, and those truths will be different, and so we need to be engaging in conversations about truth with each other. One of the things that I really appreciated about being at the Nate's symposium was that I'm trying to think of how to say this grammatically. It's not one of the things I most appreciated that it's the most evangelical space that I've been in for a long time, but it was the most evangelical space I've been in for a long time. But what I appreciated about it was that it was an evangelical space that is hospitable above being evangelical. In other words, their attitude of being hospitable matters more to them. And so I think this is one of the things that saved us at SSU, is that somehow we learned in early days that we needed to be hospitable to the truths that students brought in with them into the school. And so we let ourselves be changed over the years by engaging in conversations where faculty and staff would learn from students, as much as we taught students. And so we would be changed and we would hear things and we would learn. And that's what I mean by we tell the truth when we're hospitable. Where we tell the truth when we listen as much as we talk, when we hear things and are changed by them. And so one of the things that made me really excited about the Nate's community and hopeful about it is the way in which that's true, and you can see the way in which they're allowing themselves to be changed. Well, Terry, talked about it himself. He says, we've come a long ways. They started off several of the sessions with drum circles, and they're banging away on the drums with smudging at the beginning. And he said, when we started this all off, I would have thought I was going straight to hell if I touched any of that stuff. But that's part of how they changed. They realized that integrating these things from their own spiritual traditions was important and life-giving. It wasn't counter to the things that gave them life through through learning about Jesus and being excited about Jesus too. So seeing that integration, and you could see the trajectory. You could see how this was being life-giving for them. And even in the shape of the symposium, there were almost as many speakers there that weren't from North American Indigenous traditions as were. There were Pacific and South Sea Islanders. There was an Indigenous man from Australia talking about his experience, and so there are African Nova Scotians who were involved in this event, and so it's just this very hospitable community, and to me that makes a community truer. It makes it more deeply honest. It makes it more trustworthy. And then I think we tell the truth when we're honest about both our gifts and our limitations. And I think both require humility. I think sometimes we feel like we can't talk about our gifts. And even in the church, I think, and maybe it's because we've been doing the confessing and because we've been making amends and because we've been doing course corrections, that we feel like we can't talk about all the things that are great about church, that are great about following Jesus, and I don't even think that's humble. Like, I think that's just forgetting, you know? I think we have to talk about the gifts that make us really excited about things that came into culture through following faith, and the way in which we learned about peacemaking by paying attention to Jesus, the way we learned to pay attention to loving our enemies, the way we gave attention to learning to care for the sick and to care for the poor in the midst of lots of Christian traditions. And so we need to name these gifts in our traditions. We need to name personal gifts that we bring to a mix of things so that we can volunteer to take on tasks that we're good at. We need to name gifts in order to do that, and it's part of humility to offer these things up honestly. Yeah, okay, I know that I'm good at that actually, so sure, I'll do that. Like that's a good and a humble and honest thing to do. And it's also humble and honest to know where the limitations are for that. Which is why, as we've heard about over and over again, certainty is not our friend, because that's a dishonesty about limitations when we've talked about certainty. But when we talk about confidence, that's open, that's hospitable, that's when we can have a more humble truth that's more reliable. And finally, I want to talk about one last idea, because you might be thinking, if you've remembered the title, well, he's talked about truth-telling, slipped a little bit of hospitality in there. When's he going to talk about joy? Well, and this is fun because both Ray and Pete have mentioned that already this morning. Did I click this? Oh yeah, I did. Aren't those great folks up there? Those are pictures from a Canada Day celebration that we did as a church together back in 2013, I think, down in St. Andrews. And I think we were particularly having a party because I think Helen Sukup was becoming a Canadian citizen or something.
She had just gotten
Yeah.
confirmation of it.
And the Barnes had PR or something like that.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, so it was a great day. Took a few pictures of some folks having fun. And
Great.
Pete mentioned the humor at the memorial service being important, during the visitation being important. And I think we've often seen the role, the positive role that humor has at a funeral or when someone dies. And then in the song, The Laughter of God, Bringing the Dead Back to Life, that is exactly what they named at the Nate Symposium, the importance of joy and humor in Indigenous traditions. And I don't think I've ever heard people name before the role of humor in recovering from trauma and intergenerational trauma. And I hadn't realized, I'd actually heard a podcast just a couple months ago and I shared a clip of it upstairs just a couple months ago from a speaker named Jesse Wente, who talked about telling our stories with joy. And his point was that it's so important for Indigenous people who keep being invited to tell the hard stories, like the stories of residential school and this kind of thing, to remember that their traditions are also traditions of joy, and very much so traditions of joy, and have to tell those stories at least as much as they tell the hard stories. But at this symposium, what I actually heard people mention was that this gift of humor in their traditions is a part of recovering from trauma, specifically, is to welcome the humor and the joy into their present life, in spite of all the hard times that they've had. And one of the ways that showed is, boy, did they ever tease each other a lot? Like, it was just full of teasings and put downs that it was like, ooh, is that okay? And they're all laughing, having a great time. It's like, okay, it's all good. So it was interesting feeling some cultural difference around some of those things, and as they welcomed humor into their event in a way that should happen much more at academic events. Oh my goodness, academic conferences, they're not automatically the way to have a great time. There is so much sitting on your butt, listening to long talks. And then the whole experience it's a little bit like high school over again when you go to a conference where you don't know people, and all of a sudden it's like, I feel so small. I feel so unprotected. Like, who do I sit with at lunch? And it was interesting to feel those things all over again. I hadn't felt for a long time. Anyway, that was me rambling because I'd run out of stuff. So truth-telling. Just want that to be an invitation for today. I want it to, I think truth-telling has been a part of our tradition and our way here, and I want to invite it to continue to be, especially in ways when it gets hard. And I hope we can walk through it with joy when it's hard and when it's easy. I was glad to be reminded of that this morning, both by hearing about the memorial service for Joan and also hearing about the laughter to God, bringing the dead back to life. So, Ray, when I talked to you, you said you may have an additional song. Would that give you joy to sing one more song?
Or what about that one, the laughter back?
Oh, yeah, that'd be also great.
Well,
Which
you choose.
Yeah, please do come up. And I'm just going to say a short prayer just as Ray's come out. And that short prayer is just this: God, give us the courage to tell the truth. Give us the courage to walk it out. Amen.
How about this one? Thanks, Walter. Will you come and follow me if I call your name? Will you go where you don't know and never be the same? Will you let my love be shown? Will you let my name be known? Will you let my life be grown in you? you leave yourself behind if I call your name? Will you care for cruel and kind and never be the same? Will you risk the hostile stare? Should your life attract or scare? Will you let me answer prayer in you and me? Will you let the blinded see if I call your name? Will you set the prisoner free and never be the same? Will you kiss the leper clean and do such as this unseen and admit to what I mean? Will you love the you hide if I call your name? Will you quell the fear inside and never be the same? Will you use the faith you found to reshape the world around through my sight and touch and sound in Christ, your summons echoes true when you call my name. Let me turn and follow you and never be the same. In your company I'll go where your love and footsteps show. Thus I'll move and live and grow. Your company I'll go where your love and footsteps show. Thus I'll move and live and grow in you and So will you come and follow me if I but call your name? Will you go where you don't know and never be the same? I think that's actually, in many ways, a wonderful invitation into truth-telling. So, go in peace and truth and laughter